Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I wanted to talk about The Ones Who Live. Obviously, this show is coming out next month. A lot of stuff is happening in general with this show. It feels like there's just like new news every single day. So yeah, obviously I'm going to be breaking down everything that does come out. So if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content, especially on The Ones Who Live, definitely make sure to hit subscribe. There's going to be a lot to talk about over the next like 2 to 3 months, or at least 3 months for sure. Because yeah, I mean, this show is pretty massive, especially, just going based off of its budget here. So if you do want to support me on the channel here as well, there is a join button down below. I just recently sort of started memberships. Again, I appreciate all the support. It really does help me continue what I'm doing here on the channel and all of that. And yeah, obviously I'm very, very grateful for all of that. But let's get into what I wanted to talk about here. So I saw this on Twitter or X, I guess, last night, and it was something that I was kind of like, wait, that can't be right. But then also that kind of makes sense that could be right. And that is the fact that the total budget for The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live is around 82.7, close to 83 million per, not per episode, that'd be insane, but for the first season here. And I got this from at TWalkingDWorld on Twitter, and the post says, news, the total budget for The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live is reported to be 82.7 and then whatever. So basically 82.7 million for 6 episodes. This breaks down to approximately 13.7 million per episode, and this budget was reported by the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. So I've seen some stuff like this happen before with I believe it was with Dead City, and I think that's why we kind of know about it, is because of where they filmed, because Dead City filmed in New Jersey, I believe, or it was around New Jersey, New York, or something like that. I'm pretty sure it was New Jersey. And they used the same crew for The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, because when Dead City finished filming, I think there was some time off there a little bit, but yeah, then they basically went into filming this year. Daryl Dixon, I think, has just been sort of doing its own thing, and also they're in France, and so maybe that's why we haven't really heard of any of what the budget is, because maybe this is more of a thing that it's more public, I guess, if you're filming in New Jersey and stuff like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I will say, this is actually incredible. So first of all, the budget is higher than Dead City. So Dead City, the budget was approximately like 12 million. And again, I don't know if any of this stuff is actually true. I'm assuming it is, because it does kind of seem legit, but it seems like the budget for Dead City was around 12 million. And so for The Ones Who Live, for the budget for this show to be 13.7 million per episode is really, really insane. That's obviously 1.7 million I guess dollars of an increase per episode than Dead City. Now, Daryl Dixon, I don't know what that, obviously what the budget is for that, but I'm assuming it's around the same range. Like I mean, both shows, like if you look at Dead City and Daryl Dixon, the quality is insane, right? So just kind of comparing that with The Ones Who Live, I think The Ones Who Live, even though we haven't really seen a trailer yet, and there hasn't been a lot of footage, there's been some things here and there that we've seen where we can tell the quality is really, really amazing. And so I think the fact that the budget is this high is just honestly really incredible, because of the fact that, The Walking Dead, obviously over the years, there's been like a lot of, I think that's kind of been the issue for The Walking Dead, is that, the budget has always been very, very low. Now, I don't know what the actual budget per episode was for The Walking Dead. I know that, earlier on in the very early seasons, I know that there was something out there where, like, for season 2, the budget got like cut in half. I don't know if it was in half, but it got cut by a lot. And I think that was a thing that Frank Darabont had an issue with. Again, I don't really know. I'm trying to remember from back then. And I know that was a big issue. And so I remember the number being like 3 million or something per episode. I don't know if that continued throughout the entire series, maybe. Just because I look at the final season, and the show definitely looked better than it did in season 2, especially when you look at like around season 10, 11, things started to look really, really good, especially season 11, actually, because they started to shoot digitally, right? And I don't know if that costs more. I'm not entirely sure of the whole process on that or whatever, but I'm assuming that it never really stayed around 3 million the entire time, but I don't think it was anywhere close to 10 million per episode for The Walking Dead. Like, I don't think it was anywhere near that. So maybe it was a bit higher, but yeah. So having the Ones Who Live be 13.7 million is just absolutely, like, for me, that is absolutely incredible, because it's been rumored that The Last of Us actually had a budget of 10 million per episode, I think is what the numbers were. I believe Rings of Power had a budget of like 50 to 60 million per episode or something like that. Like, to me, that is insane. And a lot of people talked about that. Like a lot of people back then were saying like that's actually kind of insane. And the thing is, like, The Walking Dead does not need a budget that high ever. If you're giving The Walking Dead a budget like that is just insane. Like, I don't even know what you would do with that. Like, you don't need that much of a budget for that show, right? So there's definitely, like, you know, a lot of people think that, like, you know, the higher the budget is for something, the better it's going to be. I don't necessarily think that, because again, Rings of Power, I wasn't the biggest fan of, because visually, yes, it looked very stunning, but the story, for me, it didn't really feel like Lord of the Rings so much. It felt more like The Hobbit, which I liked The Hobbit, but I don't know, I really liked the story elements to it, right? But yeah, and I think that says a lot, you know, like the budget, like it doesn't really make for a better story all the time. Like sometimes it definitely does. You know, I think with The Walking Dead and some of the spinoffs and stuff, you know, we don't know what the budget is. I'm really assuming that it was lower. And I think sometimes when you have a lower budget, it does affect what you can do story-wise, you know? And so maybe for like some of the smaller episodes in terms of just character stuff or whatever, it's fine. You won't notice it. But once you start to get into some of the bigger story elements, then that's where things you notice it right away, right? Because I mean, you look at season 8 of The Walking Dead, right? Like, I mean, you just, you know, you start to have like these bigger moments not be so big. They don't feel so like massive on screen or anything. They're just like this very, you know, small scale sort of like battle or whatever. And it starts to look not that great, right? Like, I feel like that's where the budget really mostly, I think, comes into play a lot of the time is that. And that's the one thing I will say too, is like on average, it's 13.7 million. But, you know, the later episodes of the season might have costed a lot more. Maybe the first couple of episodes didn't cost a lot. I think what that really says, though, is that the quality for The Ones Who Live in terms of the things that we can see. And I feel like that's kind of where, for me, the budget mostly matters. Like, I don't think it means, oh, the story's going to be better or whatever. I think it mostly, for me, means that we're going to see some stuff that I feel like we never would have saw on The Walking Dead, right? Or on The Walking Dead, we would see it, but it looked kind of like not that legit or real or whatever. And you look at Daryl Dixon and you look at, you know, the very first episode, we saw that boat that was, I mean, actually just throughout the series, we saw a lot of that, right? But like you see the boat in the water and just the visuals of that show looked absolutely incredible. A lot of the Variant Walker stuff was also very cool because it looked very, very real. And like, that was the one thing that I will say with the spin-off shows that I didn't really notice. And I might have to go back and rewatch it because maybe that is actually a thing. I know with The Walking Dead, a lot of the blood, like the digital blood, like if they ever killed a walker or whatever, and there were, you know, because a lot of times, you know, that was done just with CGI and stuff, and you could tell in The Walking Dead, like you can actually see it, like, okay, that's definitely CGI, right? And with Dead City and Daryl Dixon, I never noticed it. I actually like really, really never noticed it. Again, I wasn't really necessarily looking for it, but I don't remember a time where I was like, oh, that was very noticeable. Like, I'm just thinking of the Variant Walker. Like, we actually saw the Variant Walker turn from a walker to a Variant Walker, and we saw the whole process, and it didn't look like fake or anything. It looked so realistic. So I think that's, you know, for me, that's where the budget really makes a big difference, is being able to see a lot of that. And I think, you know, that makes me really excited for The Ones Who Live, because there's a lot of little things that I want to see. I want to see, you know, I guess Rick arrive at the CRM base in a helicopter and just kind of, you know, see that whole process and have it feel more like a movie, not just like be in a helicopter and we see the inside and then we just kind of see the helicopter land. Like, I want to see the helicopter kind of flying in the sky and then sort of like a far shot of the CRM base, and you see in the distance the helicopter kind of landing. Stuff like that where it feels like a movie, right? And I think for me, that's one of the things with this show that, or not with the show, but with the spinoffs that has made the biggest difference. The shot right here of you know, this is in The Ones Who Live, and it's a nighttime shot, nighttime shot, or maybe it's a morning shot, I'm not sure, but this is something that we didn't get a lot, you know, in The Walking Dead. We didn't see a lot of these really cool shots like this of like, you know, these, I guess these or communities or whatever that were just kind of like so far away and have it look like this. Like, this is stuff that when you're editing and you kind of have it cut into certain scenes, and, you know, it just makes everything feel bigger in scale. And I think that was one of my issues with Dead City and the arena battle, is that it was very cool seeing the arena and all of that, like in previous episodes, but once they actually got to the arena battle and stuff with the walkers, that's where you felt like it was really small scale because they stayed inside the whole time. Almost all of the shots in that episode of them being in the arena and stuff was just stuff with them inside of it and you couldn't really tell where they were, right? So I think having a lot more shots of the arena just from the outside and maybe just other things of them walking in or walkers or this and that, just making it feel like they're actually in that place would have made that, you know, a lot more intense, a lot more just insane in general. And a lot of that could be due to filming and some of it could have been due to the story. Maybe they wanted to focus on some other elements. You know, like no season is perfect. Like for me, that's definitely an issue with Dead City, but that's really my only issue in that entire season. So that's really incredible. And then Daryl Dixon, I don't really have any issues with that show at all. So I think this is really incredible news. For The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live to have a budget this high is something that I think fans can definitely be very excited about, because it just means that we're going to see certain things that we really want to see, certain things that are going to make it feel really, really epic. And I'm so excited for the show. And there's a lot of little things that I'll say that I'm really excited about that we're sort of getting into that territory right now, which is like early reviews for the show, right? That's something that I feel like none of us are really talking about, but like early reviews for The Ones Who Live, you know, once that goes out, once people actually watch it, that should be out at some point. I'm like maybe in a month or something like that. Episode titles, synopsises for each episode, or synopsis, or I don't know if I'm saying that right, but you know, having like episode synopsises or whatever for each episode, the runtime, a lot of that doesn't really come out. Like the runtime I know doesn't really necessarily come out until like the episode is airing. So I mean that doesn't really matter to me that much, but I think that, you know, all of that stuff there, the interviews and stuff, and a lot of people saying, whoa, this is like the best show. Like, and that's the thing too, like that's kind of the excitement, you know, with all of this is like, what if the early reviews come out and they say the show was really bad? Then it's like, oh man, you know, so it's just, it's kind of insane, but like, that's also a real possibility. I will say, I don't think that's going to actually happen, because like, it's pretty hard to mess up a story like that. Like, it's pretty hard to mess up a story where you have Rick and Michonne coming back, because you can really just like you just got to write that, like, you know, like having them reunite and just all the stuff there. It's pretty easy to write. I feel like where you can sort of mess up some of the story is if the ending doesn't feel as satisfying for Rick and Michonne. If it doesn't feel like, okay, this makes a lot of sense and all of that. Like, I think that's the one thing that I will say about the show as well, is like, you know, in terms of the talk of a season 2, I think the early reviews could tell us a lot. And that's what's going to be really interesting about it all, because for Dead City and for Daryl Dixon, you know, for early reviewers, they got to watch all 6 episodes. So for The Ones Who Live, does AMC let them watch all 6 episodes? Because, you know, spoilers do come out. And that came out, I think, for Dead City, not for Dead City, Daryl Dixon, it came out. Dead City, I don't really remember any spoilers, but Daryl Dixon, I know a lot of spoilers came out that I really tried hard to avoid. I think I avoided a lot of it, but like, I know a couple things I did see, which is just, you know, that's just going to happen. But you know, for The Ones Who Live, I could see it being one of those things where maybe they don't want early reviewers to watch all 6 episodes, because if they do, then it kind of spoils the ending, and then maybe everyone kind of knows that, oh, there's not going to be a season 2, right? So maybe they hold off on that, or maybe it's one of those things that they don't want people to know. Like, again, it's one of those things that it's kind of hard to say. Like, if they don't let early reviewers watch all 6 and say they let them watch the first 2 or 3, then maybe it's because, well, they're waiting to announce a season 2, so they're going to let them watch a week before or something like that. Or it could just be that they don't want people to know that there's not going to be a season 2, because there could be some disappointment going into the show, you know. But I think no matter what, when those early reviews come out, I think we're generally going to have an idea if there is going to be a season 2 or not. I think people are going to say, like, if they're allowed to watch all 6 episodes anyways, then I think we're going to see online, like, people say, like, oh, yeah, that was a proper ending, and you're going to be satisfied that, you know, just where Rick and Michonne's story ends. I think something like that for a lot of us would just be like, all right, so I guess this is the end kind of thing, right? So I do think that whenever that comes out, I mean, that's going to be, you know, probably in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. Like, I don't know when people are going to start to get like the early reviews and stuff like that, or like the screeners or whatever they call them. I'm definitely very hyped for this trailer, and I think a lot of us are just kind of focusing on that. And like, I think, I mean, actually, I'm going to check right now. How many more days until The Ones Who Live airs? We're 52 days away. Now, I've always said this, as soon as we hit the 50-day mark, things start to really fly by. And the reason why is because once it's 50 days, it's always like, okay, so we're at that point where the promotion's probably going to start. And we've been seeing that online. It is starting to start right now. I think this week right now, it's just kind of quiet just because it's like the first week of the new year. Next week is January 8th. That's on the Monday. I think that once we're there, it's like, okay, now we're, you know, we're well into the new year here. Now I think they're going to start to promote a little bit more. And once we get that trailer in the next week or two, it should be in the next week for sure. You know, then there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out. And again, it's like every single week, there's like new images, there's new teasers, new TV spots, there's interviews, there's, you know, episode titles, early reviews. There's like stuff that's coming out every single week because that's just kind of the way it's always been, right? Like right now, I think we're about 6-7 weeks away, about 7 weeks away, I guess, right? 7.5 weeks away until the show premieres, which is just going to fly right by. So yeah, definitely post all your thoughts down below. What do you think of, or first of all, post your excitement, I guess, for The Ones Who Live, but also what are your predictions in terms of the budget? How much does a budget for a show mean to you? And what do you think the budget for The Ones Who Live means for that show, or for The Ones Who Live? Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.